Hey guys, Vol here. Just been playing so many games of War Machine and Hordes lately and taking so many photos that what I'm going to have to do is just compress everything together into one little bat rip, give you guys a bit of a recap, talk to you about just in general what games I played and give you a brief slideshow of the pictures. Obviously won't go into a lot of detail. What you're looking at here is a game with Absylonia as Legion up against Josh's eNemo list. This is the one that he's practicing with for Rally Point. Played him before using Chromac one time, but this time it's with Absylonia. Just playing a tier 4 Absylonia list, which has a discount 1 point on heavy warbeasts. I just couldn't believe the massive library of animus I had to use this game. It was really a very good learning experience for me. Obviously, I didn't play it optimally. I was forgetting little tricks and ideas that I could do here. Also, you see that picture of the dice. Josh was just rolling so many double ones because he forgot his dice and he was using my green dice, which are the terrible, terrible dice. So at one point he rolled 2 sets of double ones in a row, and I said, look, take that last roll back. I'll give you some different dice, and he did, and it was solid averages for the rest of the game. But this was quite a fun one. He managed to take out one of my heavies in one turn and wound a couple of others, so Absylonia's feat did make a big difference. But what it came down to later was him coming in on my capture the flag objective there with his Black 13th, and I was left in a situation where I had to sort of send Absylonia and herself. She's actually pretty good with Carnivore on her, and buying a little upgrade with each of her Fury boosts, as I like to call it. Even the Harrier made an appearance, as you can see there, with auto hitting the little Stormcaller dude. But no, really fun game. Absylonia has a lot of potential as a caster. I definitely run her in a tournament, but she takes a lot of sort of getting used to and practice to sort of really make her work. She's almost like the Darius equivalent from Signar with the way the feat works. But yeah, really liked her. Really enjoyed using lots of warbeasts, and I think that if you're the type of person that has played enough games with her and with Legion, having memorized all of the animus, you can start to see heaps of really interesting moves, and you'd have a lot of different options, a really big toolbox for various different effects. Man, I had, Slipstream, Bushwhack, the Spiny Growth, all sorts, and ended up managing to take the Stormstrider down the middle of the table, and at one point, Absylonia left herself in a position where she could be charged by eNemo himself, which I thought was really, really funny, but during that little conflict, the old man didn't really pull it off, and what turned into a potentially close game was a bit more one-sided in my favour. I mean, there was this point where I was meant to have charged eNemo, and he didn't have a little marker next to him to say that he had Polarity Field up, so that was a bit of a letdown, but yeah, we're just sort of fooling around at this stage. But Absylonia, yep, great to get a game with her under my belt. I'll be giving the Legion models back before I play her again, but it was a good opportunity, and there she is killing eNemo. The next game that I played and took some photos with after that was with Bethayne and Belphegor. It's a tier 4 list and very magic heavy. Directly copied the list from Pat Vance. He played a game against Jamie Perkins in the UK Masters the other time, and I just looked at the battle report and took the list out because I knew that I actually had the models I needed to play it, minus of course the second Sorceress on Helion. So I've just represented, proxied that with this model here. You see a Seraph with some other model from Reaver Miniatures balanced on top of it, but my opponent playing Venethrax, and a bit annoyed that he just went straight for Venethrax because I'd just shown up using a Belphegor list, and just expecting to play whoever. Belphegor is not very good against cricks because many of her spells affect living models, and the one awesome spell she does have, Eruption of Spines, obviously I cast that on his Wraith Engine, killing a whole bunch of Bane Knights around him, but that just triggered Vengeance, and of course he came in there to really heavily hurt the Carnivian. I was lucky for him not to actually kill the Carnivian. He rolled some very, very poor dice rolling there, but I was able to counterattack and destroy just about everything here. The feat obviously doing wonders with the Hex Hunters and Black Frost Shard and the Sorceress and Helion, and obviously Eruption of Spines itself. So managed to whittle his army down to little more than Venethrax himself, but of course Venethrax camping focus and of course wrecking a Warbeast and gaining the Fury to turn into focus means that he's pretty much unkillable in situations like this. So it came down to a point where I realized I could actually use the Sorceress and Helion blight field on him, meaning that every time I hit him, I do 1 point of damage despite his high armor. So I went for it. I knew that in a tournament situation it would probably be better for me to back off, wait for his focus to go back down to 6. and then try and attack him and just heal my troops up, but it just didn't work. And the hits that I did on him just weren't enough, so I lost. And next up, I played a game using Saren again, using the same Saren list, except changed the... I think I changed Typhon out for a Carnivian, and I added something else in there, like a Spell Martyr or something like that. But this is against John with his P. Irisk list, and the centerpiece of this list in this game was the Kiazi Assassins with Iron Flesh and obviously P. Irisk's feet, which obviously he was able to use to great advantage, just roll up the center, mean that I wasn't really able to get many kills at all. He was really rolling well with his tough rolls during the feet turn. And although I was doing really well on the left and right flanks, obviously it was going to be tough. Saren can sort of counter that by using her feet and then possibly Blightbringer to kill a few of the assassins. But my opponents just kept creeping up with the advantages here, and really took the game to me rather than the other way around. Angelius, of course, moving there to do a lot of damage. I'd taken out the Man of War Dracun with some shooting, so he'd been dismounted, and then I was locked in combat with him later. And this Raval avoided Fenris, with Fenris really fluffing his, well, not fluffing his attack rolls. He ran over to me, then I avoided free strikes, moved away from him, tried to shoot him a bit. So that didn't really have much of an effect on the game. But Blightbringer, really useful ability on high defense infantry, and to manage to save myself a bit there. Later, as you can see here, he surrounded my caster Saren with his Chaos Assassins, and then moving and just put the pressure on. I tried to keep the Shredder alive next to Saren so I could Blightbringer right next to her and wipe them all out, but he saw that. Well, I pointed it out for him just to be helpful, and then he moved to Irisk around and actually shot at the Shredder, killing it, but leaving Irisk out in the open. So all I really needed to do was survive a turn here, and I'd have an opportunity to go back and actually try and kill Irisk. He did everything he could to try and get to Saren, but just didn't quite manage it, and Saren was sitting there with just a few boxes left after fighting around with the Kiazi Assassins herself, and obviously transferring to a few beasts to remove them. Fenris getting dangerously close to the objective. My Raptor's not really doing too much behind the enemy lines, unfortunately. So what it came down to is Saren barely surviving, moving the Striders up to knock off anybody I could. Irisk sitting there with Iron Flesh, so defense 17 or something really obscure like that, really huge. What I ended up doing is I ended up having to let the Carnivian go for it. Carnivian with boosted attack rolls. I mean, Irisk had actually taken some damage from some sort of attack previously here, but sending the Carnivian in and trying to do it, I needed to roll a 12 on 3 dice, and I had 3 attempts at it, and I didn't manage to do it on any of them, so just a bit unlucky, managed to lose the game after that. Anyway, picked up my my 2-player battle box recently in the mail, just going to get started on painting and assembling that soon. That'll be ready in a few weeks' time. Not happy with the dice though, they keep rolling 1s. I tried rolling them on the floor, 4 of them all came up as 4 1s. Anyway, more news on that later. Had my buddy JJ come round for a whole day full of gaming. This first game was E. Kruger against E. Kane. He decided to bring out E. Kane because I'd never faced E. Kane before. I'd read up about him, talked a lot about him, but never actually seen him on paper. A lot of people say that E. Kane is really just about the assassination. I've got to say that I was quite scared of his army as well, because with Magic Bullet and with all these other different options, he can sort of pick away at you until there's nothing really left in your army to prevent the assassination. That's what's really scary about him. Sent the Stalker in initially to Primal and destroy one of his defenders, which were really worrying me. Druids luckily were shrugging off the shots due to their high defense there, but he sent his rangers in to try and get something done, and then just simply went for it with Kane. But he forgot that I had my counter magic druid up, preventing him from gatecrashing into E. Kruger, and that was it. I managed to basically telekinesis him around, lower his defense, and then pop him with everything. So the next follow-up game was a different match. It was E. Lilith against, with Legion, of course, with Siege. And first game with E. Lilith, didn't really feel like I created a very good list for her. Her feat only really affects the warbeasts. The 3 warbeasts that I picked weren't very powerful, and the thing about E. Lilith here is that she can't really do much in combat, and I just had to rely on shooting. Turned out to be a very, very close game regardless, just because the luck in terms of dice rolling kept going back and forward between us. Siege at one point did try to ground pound her, but Lilith was left on a few boxes at some point after transferring, and somehow managed just to keep picking my way into this game. Strider's obviously doing very well. Even the Shredder got his own little Dame the Sun with his little mini spray. But by the end of it, it was really just Raptors against Siege and a defender and a couple of guys shooting away at Lilith, because the Striders were just mopping everything up with Hunter. Very good unit to have against in this sort of situation, Striders. And man, he must have spent about 3 turns trying to assassinate Lilith, but every single time she managed to either have tenacity up and just avoided all the shots or whatever, and eventually I managed to kill Siege by arrowing him in the eye with Lilith herself. So, game number 3, again, this was a whole Sunday worth of games. I brought out Cassius, and I've been trying a different Cassius list today with the Wold Warden swapped out for a Wold Guardian. My plan here, this is against P. Haley, by the way, so never actually played against Haley before. Heading up around the right-hand side flank, going to put a lot of pressure on the capture the flag objective here. And what I've done here is I've moved out of Hellmouth, I've brought the trees feet up, which actually protected me from Haley for an entire turn, allowing my guys to get into position where I could really threaten that objective, because if I could just kill everybody near to the objective, he'd have to come closer to me, he'd have to make himself a bit more vulnerable, and I'd have a chance. And fortunately, my opponent made a couple of mistakes there, and I managed to kill P. Haley fairly early in the game with my Stalker. So the next game we played, my opponent cranking out P. Striker for the first time. He told me that he'd never actually won with P. Striker before. I was playing a caster I've never played with before, which is P. Kruger. I'm using my E. Kruger model to proxy it, but we played Incursion, and he took an all-combat Signalist, which was unexpected. And this was just a mismatch from the get-go. Because of the objective and because he had first turn, he could just walk onto the objective feet, and I couldn't attack him. So I'd have to just contest, and then in his turn, he kills the 2 shifting stones I contested with. He then scores 2 control points, and I had to attack back. In my counterattack turn, I did heaps of damage and probably got myself a dominating lead in the game. But all he had to do was kill either, the heavy warbeast on the left or the heavy warbeast on the right, given that the objective in the middle was taken away. So that was a fairly comfortable win to P. Striker. The last game that we had for that day was me with Legion again, just swapping between the factions since I had the models, playing with Vale for the first time, and I decided that I really like Vale. You can make her very, very hard to hit and very defended with her Dark Sentinel ability, thus pushing her up very far on the board. Then you can use Incite to actually do a lot of damage, and her feat in this case, I ran the warbeasts up, feated, and then of course the warbeasts were engaging the enemy gun line, so my opponent basically conceded after 2 turns. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this little recap. I've been playing tons of game lately. Would have liked to have had more time to go into some of these games in a bit more detail, but I just, all my evenings are spent gaming rather than doing videos, so I can't really find time for everything, but hopefully some new stuff coming up soon and a bit more in-depth battle reports when I've got the time. Thanks for checking it out.